to the Krystle-Clear podcast. I'm your host, Krystle, and it's my passion to help female professionals 30 and over get unstuck from their professional corporate 9 to 5 jobs and launch and grow a successful six-figure business. Today, I have a special guest, and ironically enough, he is a male sales coach who is my mentor and a seven-figure high-ticket closer for some of the top 2 Comma Club award winners. Please welcome Jay, aka Sales Ninja Lee, to the Krystle-Clear podcast. Hi, Jay. How are you doing today?
Hey, Krystle. Thanks for joining and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for joining me, Jay. I am so happy and grateful.
Likewise.
Well, I we have done this before in our previous podcast, but
hmm
some of our viewers have not listened to you yet. So
hmm
I would like again to ask you, if you were a superhero, who would you be and why?
Yeah, that was a tough question when you asked me the first time round. So I was kind of stumped because I was trying to think of all the different superheroes that it could be. The first one that came to my mind was Superman, but I've switched from being a DC Comics fan to a Marvel's fan. And then I thought Spider-Man, who is, not the strongest character. He's kind of a weak guy and he doesn't have a very good job and he has a terrible boss. And I just thought about the Krystle-Clear podcast, you're helping these people get unstuck. Spider-Man needs your help, okay, to get unstuck from his corporate job and to have a thriving business. But I digress. So the reason why I picked Spider-Man was because in all of his imperfections, I can relate with him because there are so many shortcomings and weaknesses and struggles that he has as a human being and a superhero. And likely for myself in my personal life, there's been so many struggles. There's been so many uphill battles. And most of my life, it's been kind of like, I've always had to work, 10 times harder than everyone else to get to where they are and to even excel. And I feel like Spider-Man has this uphill battle, which is why he says, with great power comes great responsibility. And with great success and with great sales comes great hardships and a lot of objections. And so I've experienced all those things, all those rejections, all those objections, but going through them and handling them has helped me to come as an overcomer, as a lethal, high-ticket, seven-figure sales closer. So I picked Spider-Man because I can completely connect with who he is and with his imperfections. I also have many, and my wife will agree with that. But I still get to show up every single day to help save lives and to help people sell more, to give more.
I love that. Sell more to give more is the ultimate mantra that I often hear you say. And
Yes.
with that, I would like to ask you
hmm
this very intriguing question. Isn't the love of money the root of all evil? And how do we avoid the love of money?
Ooh, that's a deep question. Another one that just comes out with a bomb of like, this is a podcast where you're asking, some of the deepest questions. And I was just actually sharing with you in the first one. I was like, I've been on a lot of podcasts, but the questions that you ask are so deep. It takes, a deep thinker to think these things through because, your first question was, isn't the love of money the root of evil? A lot of people would not think that, but people who understand God's word in the Bible, it does say that the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, right? So, just even money in itself is not evil because a lot of people, in even Christian and people who have been churched, so to speak, quote unquote church, people who go to church, believe that money is the root of evil, but it's clear that the love of money is the root of all evil. So I think a lot of people, can have riches and success and own lots of money and materials, but we talked about in the first podcast, what's your biggest why? If your why is, motivated by money, motivated by greed, motivated by using people as a means to an end, which is for that money, for that luxury, for that lifestyle, then that is evil in itself. And we've seen so many people who, in the Christian sphere, in the secular space, use people and use tactics and strategies, salesy, sleazy, slimy tactics and strategies for their own personal gain without helping other people. So how do we avoid the love of money? So like you were saying with that mantra, and which is in my Sales Ninja branding, is sell more to give more. Because in the first podcast, and if you guys haven't listened to it, I really encourage you guys to go back to the first podcast, Krystle-Clear podcast, where I talked about my story of ending and breaking that cycle of generational poverty. So to answer your question is, how do we avoid the love of money? And I heard John Piper, who is a famous theologian and preacher, say that the antidote to greed is giving. The antidote to greed is giving. And I also believe that to avoid the love of money, the antidote or the solution to avoid the love of money is to give it away. That's why the mantra in the Sales Ninja is sell more to give more. So that I want to be able to sell, millions and millions and millions of dollars and tens and hundreds of millions of dollars so I can give it away. And one of my hopes and dreams is to give, a lot away, not only to churches and passion projects and missionaries. And in 2020, which is last year alone, my wife and I, by the grace of God, have been able to give more in that 1 year than most of our entire lives because of what our business has been able to do. So the avoiding of the love of money is really being able to let go of it and give it away.
I love it. Let go and give it away. It's true, because the more we get attached to the money, then the more we will love money, and the more we will be more greedy and absorbed by it. But instead, by giving it away, we free ourselves from that, and more money will come flowing into our lives, and more people will be helped through that money, because actually we need money to help to live in this world, isn't it? We are just
Absolutely.
lucky that we live in the first world countries. But I originally coming from the Philippines, and having spent Christmas and New Year there, it's just an amazing feeling to be able to share and give joy to those people who are not um, gifted enough, or maybe who have not been able to think differently, or to have a relationship with money, because it's a relationship with money that is also that can be helpful for us to be able to sell more and give more, isn't it, Jay?
Absolutely. And like you were saying with the story in the Philippines, there are a lot of people in the Philippines and across the world that are living in poverty-stricken neighborhoods, cities, in living conditions that are not even livable. And one story that comes to my mind is, this is years ago, but when I was in Kazakhstan on a missionary trip for a month, for 30 days, we saw and experienced extreme poverty in this third world country, where there were so many orphans, so many children who were walking the street with no shoes. And even the missionary pastor, where we stayed for a whole month, I think he had like two outfits. Two
Mm.
outfits. I knew that because he rotated between those two over 30 days. And I was working at the bank when I was a corporate banker, and I had a pretty good job. I was getting paid pretty well, but I was coming out of an immigrant family, growing up as a Korean Canadian kid, and here in Toronto, my parents sacrificed everything to be able to live and make it, quote unquote. And here I am, with this new corporate job, with a good paying job, but having experienced quite a bit of either poverty or struggling financially, and finally experiencing and tasting, some of this monetary gain. I had bought all these new outfits, Tommy Hilfiger, Polo Ralph Lauren, golf shirts, and nice dress pants, and business pants from my business wear for banking. And and I saw this, missionary pastor who was struggling, financially and struggling with his, clothes, but he was so happy. He didn't complain. He was giving. He was very generous with his time, and I felt like God was convicting me, to give even at an early stage what little I had from the little gain that I had. And I was like, but God, I just got these clothes. They're brand new. They're not even like broken in. They're not even used. I just took the tags off of them, and I don't really want to give it up. And he was testing my heart even early on. And he basically said to me, I want you to just take what you're wearing, the clothes on your back, and then give everything else away to this missionary pastor. And we
Yeah.
happened to be the pretty much exact same height, size, and weight, which means my clothes would fit him perfectly. And I was like, oh, this is a perfect match, but I don't want to give it away. And long
Mhm.
story shorter, I prayed about it, and I was very clear that God wanted me to do that. So I could live in obedience or I could live in disobedience. And like you were talking about in this podcast, which is the love of money is the root of all evil, personal gain and selfishness is what I could have chosen. But in that moment, I'm glad to share with you and to all of our viewers that I did keep only the clothes that were on my back, and I gave everything away. And the ironic thing about this, Krystle, is, decades later, the very thing that I have the most surplus and the abundance in, guess what, are? What do you think my surplus and excessive amounts of clothing is in? That's my question to you. Can you hear me? Oh, you're muted.
Yes, well, sorry about that. I have been
That's okay.
there.
So,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. So what I'll answer my own question because I don't know if
Yeah.
you heard me, but the very thing that I have, decades later of what I gave away, which is my, my designer golf shirts and my, business, pants, is the thing that I have the most of is the very thing that I gave away. So I have an exorbitant or excessive amount of, golf shirts, dress shirts, and dress pants. The very thing that I literally just gave off from my entire suitcase. I gave everything. I left it for him. Is the thing that I've been blessed with. So I think that's an incredible thing. And we don't. And I'm not saying that you do that for that kind of gain. We don't give so that we can get. I gave willingly and out of my own volition to not expect anything in return, but God in his gracious divine provision has provided the very thing that I gave away, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense. And it's true that God really provides for us, especially when we listen to his voice.
Yes.
And it's an amazing feeling also when you have made someone feel loved, because I'm sure that Pastor Jay have felt God's love through your obedience to God's word. So I'm just amazed at that story. And it's true. I also have had that experiences with some family members who didn't have any,
Mm-hmm.
and it's an amazing feeling because last year I gifted this child a pair of shoes. Well, I
Mm,
didn't really think much about it because
amazing.
I buy my children so many pairs of shoes, and they will say, "Oh, it's nice, it's okay, it doesn't fit
Yeah.
me. Can you change? It's not the right color." But when
Yeah,
I
yeah.
gifted that little boy
Mm.
a pair of shoes, he had tears in him because it was his first pair of shoes,
Oh my goodness. That's
and
amazing.
it was on his birthday, and he was really in tears, and he really felt God's
Mm.
love through that little action. But with me, just it's okay, it's just a pair of
Yeah.
shoes.
Yeah.
But for that boy, it's a whole lot more to him, and it's
Amazing.
an amazing feeling because you can see how God works.
Mm.
And it's funny because most of the time we don't really think about how God works, because we sometimes we get used to the, especially for us who live here in Europe or in Canada or in the United States. But when you go into that into the Philippines or in Kazakhstan, in a
Yeah.
third world country where they really experience poverty, where sometimes they don't know where to get their food, and sometimes a pair of shoes for you that's not important, and for them they just treasure it. It's
Yeah.
an amazing feeling. And
So true.
giving away what God has given to you may be hard sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
because it's for you, you've worked hard for it. But
Mm-hmm.
like you said, God gives you more. We can sell more to give more, we can work more to give more, and that's also our mantra here, my husband and I's mantra. We try to educate people financially so that they too in return can help other people. And I'm just loving our conversation, Jay. And I'm sure in our part 3
Mm-hmm.
and the coming sessions are more exciting. So I
Yes.
thank you very much for your time and have a good day. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks for having me, Krystle. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.